See this book I've written, the IBS Low-Starch Diet. If you have IBS, gut pain and bloating, especially after eating, you should read it because it will tell you things no doctors ever told you about IBS. For a start, IBS is not a disease, it's a diagnosis of symptoms. And because it's not a disease, doctors don't know how to cure it. Many people with IBS also have arthritic aches and pains, backache, shoulder ache, elbow pain, stiff necks. Do you? If you're trying to get a cure for your IBS, you usually don't talk to the doctor about your arthritic pains. I went to the doctors for years. I was desperate to find some sort of treatment for IBS, but I used to control my joint pains with cortisone injections and medication. In the end, I was lucky enough to discover that by giving up starch in my diet, my IBS disappeared. When I wrote my first book about how the low-starch diet had eliminated my symptoms of IBS, I didn't know that the underlying cause of my IBS symptoms was a disease called Ankylosing Spondylitis. Let's call it AS for short. I didn't know that AS, an arthritic disease that causes inflammatory joint pains throughout the body, also causes inflammation and pain in the gut. One day in 1999, I discovered that a medical doctor of immunology, Professor Alan Ebringer, was putting patients with AS on a low-starch diet with great success. When he told me about the symptoms of AS, I was amazed to discover that my IBS was connected to an arthritic condition. The low-starch diet had eliminated my IBS, and I had actually forgotten about my joint pains because on the diet they had just faded away. To make a proper diagnosis, Professor Ebringer told me to get a blood test to see if I have the HLA-B27 gene and asked me about my family history. The blood test was positive. I have the HLA-B27 gene, and I discovered that my father and grandmother had it, other family members have it and suffer the same symptoms, but because I have controlled the symptoms for over 25 years on the low-starch diet, I haven't become crippled, as often happens in the worst cases. Many people have bought my book for their IBS and have had the blood test and discover they are HLA-B27 positive. This is particularly true for women who usually consult a GP for gut pain and bloating, but are never asked if they also have arthritic pain and are never referred to a rheumatologist. However, even if you do not have the B27 gene, if you have gut pain and bloating which has not been diagnosed as any other serious gastrointestinal disease, it is very likely that it will be caused by a bacteria called Klebsiella, which live in undigested starch in the gut, causing fermentation and IBS symptoms. Cutting down on starch will relieve your symptoms whether you have the B27 gene or not. I've had many letters from people who are negative for the B27 gene, but who swear that the low-starch diet eliminates their symptoms of gut pain and bloating. It's now being tested on people with Crohn's disease and proving extremely successful, especially for people who can't tolerate strong medicine. Crohn's people don't usually have the HLA-B27 gene, but they always have antibodies to Klebsiella. Here's an exciting piece of recent research. Scientists at the University of Texas Health Science Center say they may have found the cause of colic. They believe it could be the result of inflammation caused by a single bacterium, Klebsiella, in the gut. A study is published in the Journal of Pediatrics. Now, colic is the medical name for IBS. Babies get it. Horses get it. They shoot horses, don't they? I urge everyone, even if you're skeptical about my book, if you have the gut pain and bloating of IBS, or if you have the arthritic pain of AS, try the low-starch diet. It's completely drug-free and safe, no nasty side effects, and if you're overweight, the excess weight caused by those starchy carbs will just disappear. Starch is found in all foods made from grains such as bread, pastry, pasta, cakes, cookies, and in potatoes, rice, and some vegetables. Not everyone has to give up all starchy foods. My book tells you how to work out the level of starch you can tolerate. I had such terrible symptoms of IBS that I eventually gave up all starches. People ask, How can you possibly give up bread? Believe me, all I'm giving up is pain. My life is now so wonderfully pain-free, I have no desire to eat starchy food. When you eliminate starch, you also eliminate gluten. The IBS Low-Starch Diet is perfect for people with celiac disease and has over 200 completely gluten-free recipes. If you found that low-carb diets are boring and leave you feeling hungry, I promise that my IBS Low-Starch Diet will not do this. You can eat a huge variety of foods, including desserts, chocolate, ice cream, meringues, cakes, biscuits made from ground almonds, also called almond flour. You can also drink tea, coffee, wine, spirits, even beer. You don't have to eliminate all carbs, just starch. It's easy to find out which foods have starch. You test them with iodine. My book tells you how to do this and much more. You can buy it from the website www.lowstarchdiet.net or order it from bookshops. You won't be sorry.